Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced from AlexMercedCoder.dev, and my goal in this video is to show you how to use Code Wars so you can do more code practice, regardless what language you're learning. Um, but I'm going to be using this in JavaScript for this particular example. I do have videos where I've done Code Wars problems in like Rust and Go. You can just search for those videos there on YouTube. But yeah, you just sign up for Rust. You can just sign in with your GitHub account. Okay, that's a great thing about a lot of programming stuff that you can just log in with your GitHub account, which makes it really easy because everything just connects to your GitHub. Okay, and the kind of fun thing is that you can make friends on Code Wars, and you guys can see where you rank with each other. I don't practice here as often as I should, so you can see like my rank isn't as high as some of my compatriots. But bottom line is this is a really fun tool. So let me just show you. You log in, and again, you do have a profile, so I'll show you my profile. And the profile gives you a lot of information. And this is, again, a good thing you can put on if you're like a newer developer, a good thing that you can link to on your resume, because then they can kind of see like, how much practice you're doing, what languages are you practicing in. So you can see like, hey, I've done code problems in these languages, and you can see like my progress. So, you get not only do you get your overall rank, so I'm overall rank 6, the lower the number, the higher the rank. Also, the lower the number, the higher the challenge, the harder the challenge. But you get stats like you can see my individual rank in each language. So you can see I haven't practiced any particular language too much. I do a lot of my practice outside of Code Wars, just making videos and building things. But you can kind of see like, hey, look where my progress, okay, and that's a cool thing to show. And you can see like how many languages you trained in, which one you've trained in the most, what you've most recently did. And there's a lot of really good information here for someone who's trying to like assess you. There's other things you can do. I haven't really like played with a lot of the other features. You can even create your own challenges. So that's why there's a lot of challenges here, because anyone can kind of contribute, which is nice, but also means you kind of have to like learn how to identify like a challenge worth doing. So essentially what you would do now is you would click over here to practice. Okay, and I'm glad they changed the UI, so it's a little bit easier to kind of figure out what section you want to go to. That used to be like kata, and if you didn't know what they meant by kata, like that would have been tricky to understand. So that's a lot easier. Okay, generally what I'll do is you'll choose like a language. So, well, that's a doorbell, so I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. I got the groceries. Apparently a car alarm has gone off on the neighborhood, so hopefully you're not hearing that. But if you do hear that, I apologize. But anyways, let's continue on with our journey. So you choose a language. There's lots of languages. I find it fun to learn other languages, but if you're in your early stages, focus on one. So let's go to JavaScript. And then what I want to do is choose difficulty. And usually I'll say like start with like one of the easier ones. So really like you'll learn a lot more from really doing a lot of easy things that force you to kind of focus on individual building blocks versus doing more complex problems that are more complex problems are more going to test your mastery of those building blocks. Okay, so until you feel really comfortable with those building blocks, then it's going to be a lot harder for you to kind of imagine how to use them in all sorts of unique ways, which becomes more and more what's required as you get to the harder problems. So you really do want to build that foundation and start, at 8 and work your way up. Okay, so if I do that, and if you're new, what I usually recommend doing is you search for grasshoppers. These are like really truly beginner exercises. Okay, let's see here. I've already kind of done most of them. Check for factor. So let's do that one. And so you see here like there's like a list of languages that this particular challenge is in. So you just find the symbol for JavaScript, which is this one right here. So I'll click on that, and that'll take me to the JavaScript version. And then you just kind of read. Basically, the way these all work is that you have to write a function. Okay, here you can see what the function, the empty function, that has to pass these tests that you see down here. So you never actually have to type anything down here. What's useful though is I can see what are the arguments that are going to be passed. So basically the idea here is that, see, this is the function that I'm writing, check for factor. And the idea is that if I'm going to get past these arguments, and the result of these two arguments should be true. And then if I get these two arguments, the result should be true. So the idea is I have to write a function where all of these tests are going to pass. Where basically, if past these arguments, I'm going to get this result. Okay, so in this case, the function should test if the factor is a factor of base. Return true if it's a factor. If it is not, factors are numbers you can multiply together to get another number. So 2 and 3 are factors of 6. You can find a factor by dividing numbers. If the number remainder is 0, then the number is a factor. If you can use a mod operator in most languages to check for a remainder. For example, 2 is not a factor of 7 because 7 modulo 2 equals 1. Got it. Okay, so this is just you're just using modulus. Okay. So essentially what you want to do is just do this. You know, all you have to do is you have to make sure you have to return the value, and the idea here is I need to check if base modulo factor, because I'm saying, hey, is this thing a factor of the base? Okay, and again, if that result is 0, then it is a factor. So that's it. I'm just returning the result of that expression. Okay, so this one's, again, this is a level 8 one, so it's pretty easy. So the challenge here would be more like knowing how to use modulus, which I'm not going to kind of get into right now. I do have other videos where I go through like the fundamentals of like the math operators and things like that in JavaScript. But the idea is that basically, essentially, that's how you do the challenge. Okay, I assess the clues. I'm reading the description. I take a look at the function. So I notice that the function is receiving 2 arguments, the base and the factor, and their names should usually kind of tell you what that is. And then third, I'm taking a look at the tests. So I can see, hey, like what numbers are being passed in. So again, in the first one, is 2 a factor of 10? Well, yeah, you can do 2 times 5. Okay, so I can see, like, I can kind of further assess what I'm being asked to do. Because sometimes, like, the description itself isn't clear enough for you to know fully what you're trying to do. But you can oftentimes like get the full picture by taking a look at, like, again, the name of the arguments being passed into the function, and to like the tests that your code will be subject to. And then you'll hit attempt, but let's say I did this wrong. So let's say I change this to 1. Okay, so I'm gonna intentionally fail. First thing I'm gonna do is hit test. So there's like a little test button right here in the lower right corner. You can't see it because I'm blocking it, but in the bottom right you'll see like a button called test, and you'll see you actually get like results here. So what if I want to like double check what's going on? Like I'm like, okay, I want to console.log, so that way I can get some output to kind of base this off. So I want to see what is this actually generating. So I can hit test, and the console logs do show up here. So again, you do get the, like, if you do need to use console logs to kind of figure out problems or issues, you can do them here. Okay. A thing that I like to do is I'll actually copy the empty function, copy it over the VS Code, do all of the figuring out in VS Code, and then copy it back afterwards. And then what I do is I actually have a repository. So if I go to github.com/AlexMercedCoder, I actually have a repo where I track all my daily code practice. So in this case, like anytime I do a code problem, actually this is not it. Daily code practice. Yeah. So for example, like any code problems I've done in here, so it will be under code challenges in the JavaScript folder, and you can see like there's the URL to the actual code problem that I did, and then here's the solution that I turned in. And the cool thing about this is that I have one place where I can like go back and refer to things that I've done in the past, but all of these are commits that again contribute to your commit history, which again you want to kind of like I used to have this pretty solid green once upon a time, but these days I'm not committing as much because most of my work is more content creation than, but yeah. But the idea is you want to kind of keep that nice and green so that way you have lots and lots of commits. So yeah, that's one way to do it. And also, like, again, another tips I've had is like make a blog. It's a markdown blog, so that way all those markdown posts. But again, I haven't written many personal blogs because now I'm writing a lot of blogs professionally. So my personal commits have fallen by the wayside, as you just saw. But that's how you would use. So let me actually do this right. So now if I change this back to 0, which would be the correct answer, I hit attempt and see it passed all the tests. So then I'll hit submit, and then it's going to try it against. See here, it only passed 3 tests. Okay, so it's only giving me the test button only does a small sample of the tests. Okay, now that I hit submit, which is also right there next to the test button in the bottom right, that's going to then test it against all the tests. Okay, so I might succeed at the small test, but still fail the larger submission. So, and then once I get here, it'll show me what other people's answers were. So you can kind of see like what other people did, and I do recommend after solving it, taking a look at some of these other people's answers, because sometimes you'll find really interesting solutions. Like this is actually pretty an interesting one. Okay, so just to kind of explain what happened here, if we know that the answer is supposed to be 0, well, 0 is also falsy. So basically, they're basically testing to say, hey, is the result of this expression falsy? And technically, if it's any other number other than 0, it's going to be falsy. So using that nature of like JavaScript's truthy and falsy, it takes advantage of that and just basically say, like, long as this expression is not true, then return true. That's pretty clever. I think this is kind of basically doing the same thing, just a little bit more with an extra step. But, you know, again, you learn a lot of little different ways to do the same thing by reading like everyone's code and seeing how like different people like, this is interesting. Check for, oh, okay, it's the same thing. They just made the argument names less readable. Okay, but you got the idea. So it's fun to read through these and see if you can. I've definitely picked up like new syntactical tricks this way. So yeah, that's how you do it. And you just start building up your score. So my score just went up for doing that problem. And you just keep doing them, and that's that. And again, as you get to like 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, they do get a lot more complicated. They will take a lot more time. Like let me see if I can find this one problem I did. JavaScript. I think I did it in JavaScript. All vowels, array difference, even words, find loop, OOP privacy, reverse words, all rotations included, dupes everywhere, hex convert, the maze. Yeah, that's the one. Okay, what basically you have to do in this one is you have to like find, starting with like here, you have to write a function that's gonna kind of traverse this multidimensional array and find the end of the arrays, and like the 2s and the 1s and the 0s represent different things, like, you know, falling through like a landmine or something like that. So you actually have to like find a way, create an algorithm that'll like, kind of like a minesweeper, that'll like discover where the ones are, traverse the array by through the ones until it gets to like the end or something like that. So this was a fun one to write. Oh yeah, and that's right. You get passed in like directions. So the idea is it's telling you to move in these directions. So you're moving like, so you might be starting from here, and then if you're moving, like if you start from here, you like move north, that means you're moving here. And the idea is that based on what the numbers are, you need to determine if you successfully get to the end of the maze or not. That's the deal. So basically, if you hit like, you know, you might, if you hit 1, you're dead. If you get to the 3, you're finish, etc. like that. So that was a fun one to write. That definitely required like a lot of thought. So again, as you get to those later problems, they get a little bit more complicated, but they get fun because once as your brain kind of gets used to that sort of like breaking down the problem and then breaking it down to smaller problems and then figuring out the smaller problems and building them up into one big solution, it is very satisfying. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that. My name is Alex Merced from AlexMercedCoder.dev. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, etc.